Welcome to Too Many Tabs, a podcast where a husband and wife sit across from each other at a desk, and the wife does research, and then she tells the husband I think it's pretty clear now. It's like it's a 3-to-1 research.
So the research has been skewed.
The research has been skewed, and that's because the husband has been away,
running away,
just everywhere in America. But comes home and then gets lore dumped all over all over himself.
You leave and then you come home and I go, guess everything I learned while you were gone.
Well, first you hand me the baby.
Yeah, I'm going to bed.
You say, take the baby. I'm going to get a nap. And when we wake up,
I'm going to tell you everything you missed. And you're like, I met Phil DeFranco. I'm like, shut up. Let me tell you some secret lore from 1918.
And so here we are for another episode of Too Many Tabs.
Too many frauds and too many scammers that we wish weren't real. Too many cons and too many spammers, and we're starting to feel like we've got too many tabs open. It's too many tabs. Remember to smile.
We're back for another episode, Mrs. P, and like always, I need to get in all of my plugs for all of the people that listen. I have comedy shows.
Go to them.
The entire list of them is in the show notes.
Please go to them.
That's it. I feel like that's all I want to do.
Please go to them.
Yeah, no,
For when he leaves the house, it must be worthwhile.
It must be worthwhile.
Please.
And there's one guy in my comment sections.
Don't bring him up.
I want to bring him up. Fuck that guy.
Fallen fan.
I'm starting to get fallen fan behavior, and it's incredible. I'm obsessed with it. We recorded a new episode this week of the warm up.
Yeah, it's really warm.
Which is really warm. We bring up. We had a little discussion about a childhood bully of mine in my 30s that we forgot about.
He was a neighborhood bully.
It was a neighborhood bully. I know,
he took out everybody.
He took out everyone.
He took on SEPTA buses. I saw him punch a SEPTA bus once.
Okay, stop. You're giving away too much. If you want to hear the episode of The Warm Up this week, our 20-minute parasocial relationship podcast that reminds you of what the podcast used to be like before we cut off the beginning.
That's what the reviews said.
That's what the reviews are. People are like, listen, I love The Warm Up. It's like what you guys used to do.
When you were good.
Okay, they don't say when you were good.
Back when you were better.
Back when you guys smiled more.
We do smile.
We do smile.
It's in the song.
It's remember to smile. Beyond that, thank you to all the Patreons again, and everybody else who's
thank you
just
for
listening.
all the listeners.
Everyone. Thank you to everyone for just being the coolest.
Yeah, thanks for letting us do this.
This week, though, there will be no shout-outs at the end of the episode. The reason for that is this is a pre-recorded episode, so that way we can take the baby to Sand for the first time.
He needs to go see Sand.
He needs to see Sand in his first year of life.
And so we're pre-recording to make sure we can take a couple days to go to the beach.
Yeah, to the beach.
The beach.
The beach.
I'm going to go to the beach.
We're going to the beach.
I'm not a beach person. I'm doing this for you and the baby.
Okay.
I want to go to the lake.
You want to be a lake person so badly. And I refuse.
You can't stop me.
No, I'm an East Coaster, and lakes are where the scaries happen.
I'm going to move you to Michigan.
There's that one Stephen King movie, Creepshow.
Yeah.
Do you ever see it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So when the kid's in the living lake that eats people, and they get on the swimming dock out in the middle of it, done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Between that and Lake Placid, no. Giant gators? Absolutely not. I'll stick out in the ocean where there's sharks, but we're in numbers. Every lake I've ever been to, I've been the only person swimming. Terrifying. And I know, before you get in the comments and be like, oh, but there's lakes where multiple people go and they have a roped off area that's really safe and there's life. No.
I'm literally going to take him to lake. Everybody, don't worry. Don't worry.
Where vines touch your feet?
That's better.
That's never been a problem. I've never had that issue.
The ocean has the undercurrent where it sucks you under.
I'd rather be
They
sucked.
don't have that in
I'd rather be sucked than have something touch my foot.
Do you hear what you just said?
Yeah, I heard exactly what I just said. So with that, I think we're ready to start the episode. And this week's episode is on
Ponzi schemes.
Ponzi schemes.
Well, not about Ponzi schemes, about Ponzi and his scheme.
Oh, okay, excellent. So this really is like the Too Many Tabs origins. Because we've talked about so many multi-level marketing grifters.
I want to go back to where it all started.
Well, I think we need to get back to the grift. We do need to get back to the grift.
We need to make this podcast great again.
Okay. we're gonna take a little pause, and if you are not a Patreon member, you're gonna hear
another caffeine bar.
You are gonna hear you're gonna hear an ad. If you are a Patreon member, you're just gonna hear music. So without further ado, let's get this Ponzi scheme. You know what? Let's slide down this pyramid together.
We're back. Also, I just want to say something.
Yeah.
So when we were opening, you described it as a pyramid, right? Like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, Ponzi
which is
scheme.
What MLMs are, multi-level marketing. Ponzi schemes are not pyramid schemes. They are different.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they're different. We're going to go over it.
Oh, so we're going to go in detail on what Ponzi scheme
No,
was?
we're not really. It's
but high
just
level.
that high level, we're going to talk about who he is, what he did, and why we call them Ponzi schemes, right?
Gotcha.
But pyramid schemes are more about getting people to be part of your downline.
Yeah.
Ponzi schemes are like that, but they're a little different. So I just want to say, like, it's not like a pyramid scheme. It's very kind of different.
Okay.
But so let's talk about it.
Okay. So, because real quick, I do want to say one thing about Ponzi before we get started.
Okay.
I'm always obsessed with the person that they named the thing after.
I know. That's why we had to find out who he is.
It's so crazy because in a lot of these cases, you know, when you ever, especially like Ponzi schemes are so like I do a whole thing about Charles Boycott during my stand-up bit.
Yeah.
Because like boycott's just a word. So like, oh, he pulled a Ponzi, and you're like, okay, you know,
exactly.
like any of those things.
Because we're so far removed from it, we're like, oh, it's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
But we don't know who he is.
It also is one of those things where because at one point, I know, but at one point though, Ponzi was modern history. And so when does modern history go into a textbook, and then how does it get translated to a future generation is very interesting to me. So like when our generation, when we were in high school, we were just about to start learning about Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And there was arguments on what to say about the Vietnam War because Vietnam vets were still alive and they were like 40.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, you got that wrong. And it's like, well, okay, we have to wait for them to not notice what we're saying in the textbooks before we can call this history.
Can't wait to see the textbooks for this year.
Well, I mean, kids today are probably learning about 9/11. You know what I mean? Like that is in their history books.
They have a Channel 1.
They don't have Channel 1.
No, but like that's how a lot of people saw it. Was on Channel 1.
Yeah. Channel 1 is cool.
So
all right, Ponzi.
Carlo, Pietro, Giovanni, Guglielmo, Tebaldo, Ponzi.
Wait. How many names is that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
This is the most Italian man in history.
Was born in Italy on March 3rd, 1882.
Wait, can we give me the full name again?
Okay, Carlo. Pietro. Giovanni. I'm going to spell the next one. Guglielmo. Guglielmo. And
Guglielmo.
Then Tebaldi.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then Ponzi.
I just want to be clear about that because his full name is Carlo Pietro Giovanni Guglielmo Tebaldo Ponzi.
Yep.
And we just call him Ponzi.
Ponzi was born in Italy on March 3rd. We're only going to call him...
you're only going to call him Ponzi.
I'm only going to call him Ponzi.
I'm going to call him Carlo Pietro Giovanni.
We don't have that kind of time. So... Ponzi, growing up, was a postal worker. He worked at the post office when he was young.
Okay.
And eventually, when he got a little older, he went to the University of Rome for college.
Oh.
Where he hung out with all of the rich kids. And he got a big case of keeping up with the Joneses.
Okay.
Which didn't really work out for him. But he was hanging out with all the richest kids who were treating college like a vacation, and they were going to bars and cafes and the opera. And so he joined in with them and was picking up tabs and trying to dress in the nicest fashions.
Yeah.
Which all resulted in him spending all of his money and never getting a degree. Okay. Which pissed off his mom. And she said, you should go to America to try to find success. She was like, there's nothing for you. You've ruined our family name. You're an embarrassment. Go to America.
That's incredible. And honestly... makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a story from so much of history until I want to say about 1987 when we invented credit reports.
Yeah.
When credit reports became normalized, that fell apart because it used to be like if you fucked up, you went 3 towns over and you just had a new name.
Yeah.
And you could just start again.
Yeah.
And you would go 3 towns over and be like, all right, I'm not going to do that one again. And then you do that one again.
Absolutely. So November 15th, 1903, Ponzi got on the SS Vancouver, and he had, which was a big boat, and he had like a mid-level ticket, so he didn't have to be in steerage.
Yeah.
Like where everybody's packed up like sardines.
Yeah.
He had a nicer ticket.
He wasn't doing a jig with Leonardo DiCaprio in the lower
Wrong.
levels.
So
what?
Wrong. So he had this ticket, and he had $200 in his pocket, which was in his entire life savings. By the time the boat landed in Boston, he had $2.50 left.
How?
He had gambled and partied the entire voyage. And so he was the guy that lost to Leonardo DiCaprio, theoretically, in this storyline.
How do you lose $200? Like,
everyday gambling, baby.
oh my God.
That's
like $1,000 today.
Yeah.
Or like $1,000. I think it's even more than $1,000.
Yeah.
But like, that is a crazy amount of money. It reminds me of when I was would go on school trips, and it would be like a 3-day school trip, right?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I'd tell people, like, I have to not spend all of my money at the first gift shop.
Yeah.
At the first gas station we stop at.
Impossible.
I can't buy.
For you? Impossible.
And I had like $40.
No.
For 3 days.
No.
Because my mom would be like, it's 1998. That should carry you. It's an orchestra trip. How much can you get in trouble can you get into? And I'm like,
wrong.
have you discovered Reese Pieces?
So while he was on the boat, and as soon as he landed in Boston, he started learning English right away.
Yeah.
He got a job at a restaurant washing dishes, and he slept on the floor of the restaurant because he had nowhere to live. He worked his way up to the position of waiter, but was fired for shortchanging customers.
Okay.
Honestly, back when it was cash, I'm saying.
Listen.
In 1907, Ponzi moved to Montreal. Boston wasn't working out. So he goes up to Montreal.
So he went to Canada.
And he became an assistant teller at a newly owned bank called Banco Zorossi. It was an Italian bank. And Ponzi at this point has a really good personality. Everybody says he has a great personality. He's got moxie. Okay.
Yeah.
And he also at this time speaks English, Spanish, and French. He also learned French.
Oh, and Italian.
So Banco Zorossi paid 6% interest on bank deposits, double the going rate at the time, and was growing rapidly as a result. Ponzi eventually rose to bank manager. However, he found out that the bank was in serious financial trouble because of bad real estate loans. And Zorossi was funding the interest payments not through the profit on investments, but by using money deposited by newly opened accounts. The bank eventually failed, and Zorossi fled to Mexico with a large amount of the bank's money. And this is the first time that Ponzi witnesses the idea of robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. So he doesn't have a job anymore. His bosses have fled to Mexico.
Yeah.
He has nothing to his name. And so he goes to this place called the Canadian Warehousing Company, and he's looking for a job. Like, he goes to this place and he's looking for a job, but no one's there in the office that day. He gets in there. And so he walks in, finds a checkbook, writes himself a check for $423.58.
Why that amount?
I don't know. And then
That's such a crazy amount.
Signs it and gets caught. The police find him, confront him, and Ponzi holds out his hands and is like, I'm guilty. And he spent 3 years in federal penitentiary. And rather than telling his mom, because he's been writing letters the whole time, he sends her a letter stating that he got a new job as, quote, a special assistant to a prison warden. And that's why the letters are coming from the prison.
Oh, man. I love that he's so Italian that he's like, I can't let mama know.
I can't let
mama know.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's such a bag of shit. I'm kind of in love. I'm thinking back though, the check, I'm wondering if he's like, oh, if I make it a really weird specific amount, then people won't notice
You won't question it.
Because if you write it for just like $100 flat.
Yeah.
Like no business writes a check for $100 flat. Even.
No.
You know what I mean? So
58 cents.
Yeah, 58 cents is, but also it's so wild because as you're writing that out, like you have to write that out.
Yeah.
And on a check. You have to write the word 400 and do that. That's
Crazy.
So wild.
So 1911.
Yeah.
17 days after his release from prison, Ponzi boards a southbound train with 5 Italian young men, who had arrived from Italy, and none of which had proper papers. As the train, we're heading to the U.S., by the way.
Oh, from
As
Canada,
the train
yeah.
approaches the U.S. border, the U.S. Customs inspector comes aboard and starts asking some questions. Ponzi insists these men were strangers to him, and that while he was at the train station, he saw an old friend, and he was like, oh, these are my friends. You can just keep an eye on them, make sure that, they don't get in any trouble, blah, blah, blah. All 6 of the men, including Ponzi, were taken into custody, and Ponzi got the highest charges for, quote, smuggling aliens. The other 5 were set free.
Wait. So he got arrested for being a coyote, basically. And then they released the other guys because they're like, well, clearly this is all his fault.
And according to like the one book I read about this, he had met one of the Zerosi guy that ran to Mexico. One of his cousins had written him a letter in prison, apparently, and been like, we're going to pay you to get these 5 Italian guys into the United States.
Oh, so he was actually doing it.
He was actually doing this.
But, okay, gotcha.
So he got caught, but he played it off like he didn't know.
Gotcha.
He's like, no, I just was keeping an eye to make sure they could order coffees, you know?
Okay, I didn't realize that he actually knew who these 5 guys were. That's okay, that's incredible.
5 guys. And they all got off free. And he got
and then they got burgers and fries?
They got burgers and fries at 5 guys.
Yeah.
So... after he gets arrested for this situation, he's talking to the prosecutors, and the prosecutor told him that if he pleads guilty, he would likely only get a $50 fine and 30 days in jail. But if he pleads not guilty, he would probably get serious time. Okay. So due to this, he pleads guilty. And when he's in front of the judge, crazy, sentences him to 2 years in federal prison and a $500 fine. So... The prosecutor
so the plea
lied
deal,
a little.
Yeah, so the plea deal fell apart.
It fell apart.
Yeah.
And the judge was like, fuck you. So he gets...
And this is at a time when being Italian was a crime.
Exactly.
That's really what's coming down here. It's like, no.
Nope. So he gets sent to federal prison and is shipped down via train to Atlanta. He has to go to prison in Atlanta.
Wait. He was in Montreal. I can only imagine what his internal barometer is doing right now. To go from Montreal to Atlanta prison is crazy.
Well, he went to Montreal to New York, and then from New York to Atlanta.
No, I know, but I'm saying though, it's like he was in prison he was also in a Canadian prison. To go to fucking Atlanta. Okay.
So while in Atlanta prison, he became the translator for the warden. So like this is like his work thing.
So now he really is the assistant to the warden.
He's really the assistant. He's doing translating.
Mama, you won't believe. I got a transfer from Canada, and now I'm down in Atlanta, Georgia. This is his poor mother.
It was his job as translator was helping the warden because he was intercepting letters from. There's a mobster in the prison named Ignazio the Wolf Lupo.
Okay.
Well, Lupo means wolf.
Yeah.
But they called him the Wolf.
The Wolf.
So his job was to translate.
I wonder if
letters.
the Wolf ever interacted with Black Hawk.
So the Lupo was part of a terrifying mafia group called the Black Hand.
Uh-oh.
So I just thought it was a cool name.
No, that is a cool name.
Lupo is in prison for killing a detective. Actually, okay, here's what happened. There was this detective who was trying to get into this mafia group and take them down.
Yeah.
And Lupo did kill him, but they could never pin it on him. But what they did pin on him was 2 counts of counterfeiting, making fake money. And so he got 30 years in Atlanta prison for making fake money.
Well, that's what they always do. I mean, that's the same thing that happened with Capone and all these other different guys. It's always some secondary crime because he's so concentrating on making sure he's not getting busted for murder.
Yeah.
They're really good at not getting caught for murder.
But
But paperwork?
Paperwork.
Fuck you.
Ponzi ended up befriending Lupo, even becoming his cellmate, because Lupo had gotten tired of stool pigeons. And fun fact, Ponzi never became a stool pigeon, which is when you are like reporting back to the warden everything he says.
Yeah.
So like he translated the letters, but Lupo knew he was doing it. And when he became his cellmate, he never told the warden anything Lupo said. Yeah. Right? He was like, absolutely not. You're not getting my ass killed.
Yeah. That is okay. Honestly, that's a good balance. He probably also told Lupo, just so you know, like they can read Italian. It's like they can read. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They read. They got a guy who hangs out with the warden every day who gets like maybe he gets an extra little cut of cake every day.
Yeah.
And because of that, they can understand Italian now. Yeah. I'm just throwing it out there. That somebody. I know that we're in all of Atlanta. There's only 2 men who speak Italian. In all of Atlanta prison.
So there's this other guy in prison as well.
Okay.
His name is Charles W. Morse.
Okay.
And I would say that Ponzi treats Morse the way that like a 2012 white gal would call someone a spirit animal. You know what I mean? Like Charles Morse, Ponzi is like, this guy is everything to me.
I have a feeling. Is Charles W. Morse a flim flam man? Because that's a very flim flam man name.
Listen, Charles Morse was born wealthy. extremely wealthy.
Okay.
And he loves shady deals. He's super rich and loves paying off corrupt politicians and finding every loophole he can find, right? He's a scumbag businessman who comes from money and has never seen a repercussion in his life. He decided at one point he wanted to have complete control over the New York ice business. Before refrigeration, ice was a multi-million-dollar utility company. So he consolidated the ice company and merged it with the American Ice Company. And then once he had control of all of the ice companies in New York, he sharply inflated the cost of ice. Charles Morse, though, was not familiar with the smell of food rotting in the streets and underestimated the intense public reaction to his, quote, business move. Okay? So he tanked ice.
He's Marty Skrull.
Yeah.
He is Marty Skrull, the guy who tried to do that with like a certain medication, who then had the Wu-Tang album.
Yep.
This is that same general idea of collapsing everything together. And it's the reason why we have laws against monopolies.
Yep.
Also, though, I've never thought of ice as a utility. That's actually a very interesting thing because, once we had refrigeration, that fell off. And so we don't think of refrigeration as a utility. We think of the electricity to run the refrigeration as a utility. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
You just opened my brain up.
Nice.
You opened it up and you just added another little
little ice in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically everyone in New York City was fucking pissed because everything
now
stunk
everything
like rotting
stinks.
food.
Yeah.
Kids are hungry. Every grocery they have is fucking rotting in the streets.
Yeah.
So there was a huge public outcry to like burn the witch basically.
Yeah.
And an investigation found all of his bribes and the ice companies were shut down. But even when they shut it down, he was still made a $12 million profit from it.
Yeah. But I bet there was a lot of shady paperwork they went through.
Yeah. So then Morse decides to pivot. This time he bought a dozen banks. He bought banks. This is how much money we're talking about. He bought banks and found a few investors.
A dozen banks is crazy.
A dozen banks. And found a few investors. And they used the banks and the money within the banks to try to corner the copper market. Because he was like, if we can corner the copper market, we can control copper.
Gotcha.
Right? However, it was a lot of speculation in the copper market, and the collapse of his copper investments directly contributed to the Panic of 1907.
Oh. So this is Jesus Christ. Okay. Got it.
Got it. Do you want to remind people?
Yeah, we just covered this in the last episode.
About Hetty Green.
And how she
saved people
she saved most of New York because this guy caused the collapse. Oh, you're tying them together real good, babe. Jesus Christ.
Morse ended up in the Atlanta federal prison with a 15-year sentence because of the copper collapse.
Okay.
Not the ice.
Yeah.
But he was held accountable for the failure of the trust in these banks and all that shit. So he starts appealing to William Taft, the president, immediately for leniency. He starts writing letters.
So this guy's so rich that he just reaches out directly to the president.
He's like, please, you got to let me out. At the same time, he's getting very ill. And so with his pleas for release, he's like, please, I'm just so sick. Please just let me out. Please be lenient. And the prison doctors confirm, like, Morse is really ill. He's really sick. So Taft grants a presidential pardon 13 years before his sentence is supposed to be done. So he gets out after 2 years.
Yeah. On
humanitarian grounds because he's so sick. Morse is released and went directly to a European vacation, having healed from his illness extremely quickly, because it turns out he had been eating soap shavings to appear sick.
What? What?
And so from this man, Morse, who Ponzi was obsessed with, from this, Ponzi learned his greatest lesson that he would take with him for the rest of his life, which is the American legal system is kinder and gentler to men with money. If a man is rich and powerful, he can escape prison through the front gate.
Oh my fucking God.
And that's a quote from the book that I read called Ponzi Scheme by Mitchell Zuckoff. It's just an incredible quote.
It's an incredible quote, and it's completely true.
I know.
As we sit here wondering whether or not 34-time convicted felon Donald Trump becomes the president who then has presidential pardon powers again.
Yeah, exactly.
What a fucking tie together.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I need a break.
Let's take a break.
That. That is a lot. That's a lot. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to learn more about Ponzi after that incredible aside about Morris.
Allegedly.
Oop,
What?
hit a wrong button. Meant to hit an air horn. Hitting allegedly. Which is, I feel like,
Welcome
most
back.
of Ponzi's life.
Yeah.
But aiming for an air horn, hitting allegedly.
So we
yeah.
left off, and Morse has walked out of prison a free man with a
Yeah.
presidential pardon.
Yep.
Because
From
why not?
From our fattest president.
Yeah.
Howard Taft, who I believe was the one who got stuck in a bathtub.
Well, who hasn't been there?
Who
You
hasn't
know?
been there?
So eventually, Ponzi is released from prison as well, from Atlanta prison.
Yeah.
And he moves back to Boston to look for work. While he's there, he meets a lady named Rose Maria Ginecchio, who's a stenographer, who they fall in love and they get married.
Okay.
While he's up there, he sets up an office in Boston in the summer of 1919 in an attempt to sell business ideas to contacts in Europe. It's the most schemy scheme I've ever heard. He's trying to sell ad space in magazines that don't exist, but also just in generally is like, once he gets someone on the phone, he's like, I got all these business ideas. And it's bad. So he receives a letter while he has this office from a company in Spain, what had questions about his advertising in his magazine, right?
Okay.
And when they sent this letter, it was accompanied by an IRC, which is an international reply coupon, leading Ponzi to find what he thought was a loophole that he could capitalize on. An international reply coupon, an IRC, allowed a person in one country to pay for the postage of the reply to a correspondent in another country. IRCs were priced at the cost of postage in the country of purchase, but could be exchanged for stamps to cover the cost of postage in a country where redeemed. If the values were different, there was a potential profit. Inflation after World War I had greatly decreased the cost of postage in Italy, expressed in U.S. dollars. So an IRC could be bought cheaply in Italy in exchange for U.S. stamps at a higher value, which could then be sold. Ponzi claimed that the net profit on these transactions after expenses and exchanges was in excess of 400%.
Okay, so they can get a 400% return
Mm-hmm.
after everything. So it makes sense. It does. Yeah, I understand what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's buying prepaid postage.
Yep.
He's buying a coupon for prepaid postage in Italy that you can redeem in America for stamps that cost more than if you would purchase them. I understand with the commercial. This literally, by the way, this is Money Changers.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Jesus whipped people for. Just where Jesus and the Money Changers, this is exactly what they're fucking talking about, is this type of shit.
Yeah.
Where he was like, do not do this.
Don't do it.
Don't do this. It is literally one of the few things Catholics are told not to do. Don't eat meat on Fridays.
Not allowed.
Don't be a money changer. And he was like, I'm gonna do both.
I
bet
never said he ate meat on Friday.
I bet he was eating a steak while doing
I never said
it.
Seeking an opportunity, but needing large capital to make this idea happen, he needed to borrow money. So he went to several banks. They got rejected from all of them. He went to this one bank called Hanover Trust Company. They were not convinced either. But apparently their manager, Chmielinski, was extremely rude to him and was like, get the fuck out of here. Basically, like, you just need to know that the guy who was running Hanover Bank was really fucking mean to him.
Good.
And was like, you fucking idiot.
Yeah. He was like, you fucking con artist.
Get out of here.
Get out of here, Carlo Pietro.
Get.
Get out of here, Carlo Pietro Giovanni Guglielmo Tebaldo Ponzi.
In January of 1920. Okay, I want you to start really listening to the dates, okay? January 1920.
January 1920.
Ponzi starts his own company, the SEC, Securities Exchange Company.
The SEC?
Yeah.
He started the SEC? That is fucking insane.
The Securities Exchange Company. He went to several of his friends and promised them that he could double their investment in 90 days.
In 90?
In 90 days. Double the investment.
I love this. I can already feel the NFTs. You know what I mean?
In the
I can already
first
feel
month,
it.
18 people invested in his company, a total of $1,800. He paid them promptly the very next month with money he obtained from a new set of investors.
Yep.
Word spread and investments increased rapidly. Ponzi started hiring agents and paid them generous commissions.
Yeah.
Between February and March of 1920, so we're 2 months away, the total amount invested had risen from that original $1,800 to $5,000 in February and then to $25,000 by March. As the grift grew, Ponzi hired more agents to seek out investors in New England and New Jersey. By May of 1920, he had made $420,000, the equivalent to $6,400,000 in 2023. That's how much he made by May. In June of 1920, people had invested at this point $2.5 million in Ponzi's scheme, equivalent to $38 million in 2023. By July, he was making $1 million per day.
$1 million a day was coming in?
By July.
Jesus.
Ponzi began depositing his money, a lot of it, into the Hanover Trust Bank of Boston in hopes that once his account was large enough, he could impose his will on the bank and demand he be made its president. He bought a controlling interest in the bank.
Did he then fire that guy who called him an asshole?
I couldn't find any proof he did, but he did.
Yeah.
Or he became the worst boss in the world.
Or that guy was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
To me, if I was that guy, I would have like read the room and be like, I'm fucking out of here.
I'm out of here, y'all.
Y'all are fucking dumb. But also back then, there were a lot more banks.
Yeah.
So there was a lot. And
you just buy banks, apparently.
But they also failed all the time.
Yeah.
There also wasn't as much banking regulation because, again, this is pre-FDR. So you could get away with some wild shit back then.
Yeah.
There was no FDIC insurance.
Because Morse hadn't forced it yet.
Morse hadn't forced it yet. There also wasn't any another secondary part of it is there wasn't as much federal oversight.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing that came with FDR was coming in and regularly having auditors check in on these banks to make sure that in the case of the first bank that Ponzi was dealing with, where he went from assistant teller to manager, that difference it can happen, but it's much less likely to happen today because they'd have to be cooking the books at such a rate that somebody would eventually blow the whistle, hopefully. Somebody.
So Ponzi's initial investors consisted of working class immigrants like himself,
Yeah.
especially Italian immigrants,
Yeah.
spreading the word. Gradually, though, news traveled upwards and many well-to-do people started investing in his scheme. 75% of Boston's police force had invested in the scheme.
Yo! Let's go, dude.
Ponzi's investors
Ponzi said ACAB. Jesus
Ponzi's
Christ.
Investors even included people closest to him, like his chauffeur and his brother-in-law. See, I don't think it's ACAB. I think he doesn't have any fucking sense. Because if you're running a scheme like this, you don't ask your brother-in-law. You don't ask the cops. You watch.
I'm going to tell you something right now. If I'm scheming, I'm taking your brother down with me.
Okay.
All right? Listen.
Listen here, brother. You hear what he's saying?
Yeah, you hear me? I will take your money. I will crush you under my heel.
Okay, absolutely not. So Ponzi was paying back investors. People were getting their money. He never figured out how to actually change the IRCs into cash. Changing the coupons to money was logistically impossible. For example, the initial 18 investors and their $1,800 would have taken 53,000 postal coupons to actually realize the profits. For the subsequent 15,000 investors that Ponzi had, he would have had to fill Titanic-sized ships, multiple, with postal coupons and ship them to the U.S. from Europe.
And then the stamp price would have collapsed.
Exactly.
Because
it
of
was
how
actually
much,
impossible.
Yeah. Almost the same way as like using Bitcoin to buy pizza. Like it's incredible how this is all the same thing. Because this is a big thing they talk about, like with the GameStop stocks and all that other stuff. Like who is a bag holder? Who gets caught holding the bag at the end of one of these? Because if you're in early, it's great. You doubled your money.
Yeah.
You guys put in $1,800 and all of you combined, the 12 of you combined, got $3,600 out of it. Yeah. Awesome. Be done. It's the same thing with Dogecoin, with NFTs, with all of these financial guru grifts that happen all across like YouTube and TikTok and all of this shit. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
This is just one guy happened to trick his way into it.
Yeah.
It's also a thing just for all of our listeners to keep in mind. Anyone who guarantees you a return, walk away from that person immediately.
Exactly.
It's all investments are a risk. Even an investment as low as buying your own house, which is more secure,
Still
You
a
can buy
risk.
listen, you can buy a house and not know
Then it will flood.
that it'll flood, or you can buy a house and think, because house values always go up. They could put an electric plant next door. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know who your neighbor is going to be. You don't know what's going to happen. The business in town could dry up. All these different things can happen. So, like, the house that you paid for could be worth less at the other end. It is less likely to happen than any other way. But a lot of these guys, especially in like the real estate flipping side of, or selling you on a program. Oh, take my class to learn how to sell classes.
Oh, my class.
This is all the same thing. This
Class
just
to
comes
sell.
from here. And the reason why Ponzi's able to do this is because of the combination of two things. Number one is actually the telegraph. And number two is the phone and radio starting to spring up. So because that mass media is beginning to really exist, he's able to spread this at a rate that's insane.
Crazy.
Because this should just be in Boston. But as you're saying, it's also all in New York. It's also happening to other towns.
Yeah.
He's spreading rapidly like a virus.
Yep.
It's incredible.
Ponzi lived luxuriously. He bought
course he did.
mansions, cars, the whole thing. He also bought a macaroni company and a wine company in an attempt to gain profits that he could use to repay investors on the IRC
The
scheme.
most Italian plan ever.
I know.
We're going to make a macaroni.
It literally said
I got a
macaroni.
wine.
I was like, it could say pasta, but it did say macaroni. So I
Macaroni
wrote
pasta.
macaroni. I was like, damn. Also, like, pardon me. I love that, like, he's not buying these companies to wash the money, which would be more intelligent. He's not trying to wash the money. He's just trying to make more profits to pay back the investors.
Yeah.
Which is so funny.
He's trying to bail out the ocean.
That's
That's
so
what he's
funny.
trying to do. He's trying to bail out the ocean instead of keeping the boat afloat. Because in reality, what he should be doing is he should be trying to have people believe that the return isn't as good, dial back the return.
Yeah.
And that way you don't have to keep bringing in so many new investors. Because eventually, even if it keeps going, you will run out of people.
You run out of investors.
You run out of people. And that's
what
when the whole
happens
thing.
in the MLMs.
Yeah.
Because all the girly pops that are selling the leggings and putting them more women in their downline, eventually the whole neighborhood's covered in people selling leggings and there's no more market.
Yeah.
You run out of people.
Eventually, you're the last lady who joined the downline, and suddenly you are paying for everyone else's mortgage.
Yeah. Whoops. So Ponzi's rapid rise naturally drew suspicion.
No shit.
When a Boston financial writer suggested that there was no way Ponzi could legally deliver such high returns in a short time, Ponzi sued him for libel and won $500,000 in damages.
Wow. Wow. He's right, though. If you're rich enough, you can do shit like that. That's the thing Trump keeps trying to do.
Oh, you're going to love this next part.
Yeah.
A Boston furniture dealer who had sold Ponzi some furniture for one of his mansions. After they were delivered, Ponzi refused to pay, so he sued him. The lawsuit was unsuccessful, but some people started to begin asking questions like, how could Ponzi have gone from being penniless to a millionaire in such a short span of time? What's going on? And there was a run on his company. People started coming in and demanding their bank notes and stuff, and investors started pulling out. However, he paid them all off and the run stopped, right? And the reason he was able to pay them all off is because when the newspapers published the fact that he was getting sued, right? People read this article and said, oh my God, the fact that this guy is so rich enough to be sued for $1 million, he must be so good at it. And so he actually attracted more investors. And that's how he paid off those people that came for the run. Which is the Trumpest shit I've ever heard.
That is the most Trump shit I've ever fucking heard in my entire life. He must be rich if he can afford to defend himself in a lawsuit about being a grifter.
He must be rich if he can afford to let casinos fail.
Yeah.
You gotta be rich.
He must be rich if he can afford to not pay contractors by reverse suing them and tying it up so long that the contractors go bankrupt, which is a common story in our area.
Absolutely.
Like, that's so fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That is, but also it just shows that how people don't change.
People don't change.
People don't change. He looks rich, therefore he is. Therefore he must be good with money.
Therefore I can trust him with my money.
Therefore he is blessed by God, just like Joel Osteen.
Therefore I need to buy his cool cards.
I need to buy his digital cards, and if I spend $1,500, he'll send me a sliver of his suit.
Please, sir, if I could just have a sliver of his suit.
If I could,
I feel as rich as you.
If I could send you half of a rent payment of a futon in New York, then could you please send me a sliver of your clothing?
Please, sir, all my clothes they're in rags. I would just like to buy your pieces of suit to sew them together, sir.
Yeah, for those guys who don't know, and I don't know when you're listening to this, Donald Trump has released a digital trading card, which is just an NFT, but he calls them digital trading cards because he cannot understand the idea of an NFT.
Nope.
And if you buy 15 of them at $100 a piece, he will send you a physical
real
card,
baseball card.
and on that card is stapled a piece of a suit that he claims it will be the suit that he wore when he, quote, defeated Joe Biden in the presidential debate.
Yeah.
Which I would argue Joe Biden defeated Joe Biden in that
Joe Biden defeated
by
himself.
being awake after 9 p.m.
Shouldn't have. He's got to go to bed, bud.
Should have gone to bed, bud.
So it's July 24th of 1920.
Oh my God.
Still in July.
We're still in the same year.
The Boston Post prints like a puff piece article. Basically, they like follow Ponzi around, and they're just like trying to be like, who is this guy? What's going on? But it comes off very much as like they didn't ask a lot of hard-hitting questions.
Yeah.
And they said that he indeed was returning 50% returns on investments after only 45 days. And after the next business day, after this article was published on the Boston Post, his office, Ponzi's office, had a line that went down like multiple street blocks, thousands and thousands of Bostonians waiting to invest their money. So like they gave him a soft launch. Like they were oh, I mean, people are getting their money. But people took that as like, oh, they're getting their money. We're in line. We're doing it.
Yeah.
So through the roof business goes. However, the acting publisher of the Post, his name was Richard Grozier, was suspicious after talking to the original journalist, right? Yeah. He was suspicious and assigned an investigative reporter to look into Ponzi further. The paper contacted this guy, Clarence Barron, who was a financial journalist who headed the Dow Jones and Company.
Okay.
To examine Ponzi as well.
Okay.
And Barron observed that though Ponzi was offering fantastic returns on investment, Ponzi himself did not invest in his own company, which was suspicious.
Oh, I'm already... Okay, I'm in. Let's go.
Barron also noted that to cover the investments made with the SEC, 160 million postal reply coupons would have to be in circulation. However, only 27,000 actually were in circulation. And he confirmed with the United States Post Office that reply coupons were not being bought at the quantity... Not at that quantity at home or abroad. So this many coupons does not exist.
Yeah.
Is what Barron found.
Yeah. So they'd have to be 16 million or 160 million, you said?
160 million postal reply coupons.
That is a crazy amount.
We aren't writing letters like that back then, guys.
No.
Nobody's writing letters.
No, but also
not
to Italy. Nobody's writing that many Italian letters.
So the Post published their findings. They're making these little articles for weeks. They're like writing all these articles.
I love that, by the way, that this is a scam within a scam, because this all started because he was trying to scam Italians about a fake magazine he had, and now he is this second. He's completely forgotten about that scam. I guarantee you, he's like, no, just tell him the magazine closed.
The Post published articles about their findings, which caused a run on the Securities Exchange Company. So people started showing up demanding their money back, wanting their investments back. Ponzi paid out $2 million in 3 days to a wild crowd outside of his office. There's actually pictures of it online and in this book that I was reading of like the people outside, like just demanding their money. However, Ponzi, he pays them. He gives like, of course, come in. You can get. There's this huge crowd outside. He goes outside with coffee and donuts and cheerfully telling everybody, you have nothing to worry about. No worries. Have coffee. Have a donut. It's listen, the tellers are doing the best they can. We're going to get you all in. And he actually was out there talking to people so cheerfully and delightfully that many people changed their mind and just left. They were like, no, he clearly knows what's going on.
Yeah, he'd be freaking out. He'd be in hiding.
Yeah,
he would have fled to Mexico. He would have fled to Mexico like that other bank guy.
He's clearly giving us donuts and coffee and being like, guys, everything's fine. No, don't worry. They're going to take you just one at a time.
Yeah.
And so he casually got their confidence and people started leaving and saying, you know what, just keep it.
What's crazy is I've always thought about that with like bank runs and things when people are that desperate to try to get their last dollar out of a place. Or like when you watch Old Wall Street before it was all computers, when it's the guy screaming, I'm like, how does anything get done? Yeah. Like if you run up, you're like, I want $20,000. Like how do you You go and calmly fill out the slip over at the check writing table first, then go crazy? Like when are you allowed to go nuts to get your money? You know what I mean?
Give me that money. All of this attracted the attention of the U.S. Attorney for the District of Massachusetts, who commissioned an audit of the SEC's books, which was difficult because Ponzi's bookkeeping system actually consisted of only index cards with the investors' names. So I looked into this, and basically what would happen is the tellers, the people that worked at the front, you'd go and you're like, I want to invest in the scheme.
Yeah.
It's not, they're not calling it a scheme.
Yeah,
the business.
Yeah, $50.
And they would have an index card and they write your name on it and how much you put in and like your contact information. That's it. And then basically at the end of like every hour or so, these tellers would go back to the vault, and the vault had like a little opening on the front, kind of like a prison would for putting food in.
Yeah.
And they would put this basket, 2 baskets through it. And on one side, it would dump down into one box, and the other side, it would dump down the other box. And on one side, it was all the index cards, and the other side, it was all the cash.
Okay.
And they would just put it in the vault, dump it, close the door, and go back and get more index cards and more cash.
That was the system?
That was the system. That's the bookkeeping.
They're just doing cash dumps?
Cash dumps and index cards.
That's incredible.
It's so crazy.
But they're okay. Jesus Christ. So
I knew this episode would hurt you as a former banker.
This is fucking driving me insane. Just because, like, I understand, like, it also bothers me as a former librarian.
Yeah.
Like, as a library aide, because, like, the Dewey Decimal System just got fucked.
Nope.
And we're only up to July?
We're almost in August, okay?
Okay, all right.
So during all this time, Ponzi hires a publicist because he needs PR.
He's making $1 million a day.
He needs PR. So he hires this PR guy, William McMasters. McMasters quickly becomes suspicious of Ponzi. So he hires this PR guy, and this PR guy's like, nope, something's wrong. He later described Ponzi as, quote, a financial idiot who did not seem to know how to add.
Don't be talking about my man Carlo, Pietro, Giovanni, Guglielmo, Tebaldo, Ponzi that way.
McMasters found several highly incriminating documents that indicated Ponzi was merely robbing Peter to pay Paul.
These are just laying around.
They're out.
The best part
Baskets.
This is how I know this is a good PR guy. This is how I know, because like there's 2 type of PR. There's one that can make it up whole cloth, just pull it out of your ass, and there's the other one who's like, no. Talk to me. Let's heighten what's good. Let's diminish what's bad. Yeah. Let's find out these things. We're gonna turn the volume up to 11, right? Yeah. And then this guy walked in and was like, if I was to highlight what's good, I'd be highlighting air. Nothing.
I just picture this. Was it Joe Jonas? He was the one that was married to the gal from Game of Thrones. His really bad PR was like during that divorce. It was just like they kept putting out stuff and their PR was just crashing and burning. And I was like, this guy would not do that. He was like, listen,
this feels like the guy who was given the R. Kelly contract and just said plead guilty.
Yeah, you're good. We're not doing this.
No.
Absolutely not.
You want to meet with Gayle King?
Nope.
You want to go talk to Gayle King? I'm out.
I'm quitting.
I'm out. Do me a favor. Sign your name. I know you can't read. Sign your name on this check real fast because I have to go cash it.
I have to go. So McMasters, finding all this information, calls his former employer, Grozier, the guy who's the boss at the Post.
Oh.
Because he used to work at the Post. With all this information. And Grozier offers him $5,000 for the story, which was printed on the Post front page August 2nd, 1920.
Oh my God. So Ponzi hires a PR guy who is like, you're so shitty, I'm going back to my old boss.
Yeah.
And his old boss is like, wow, here, if I give you $5,000, don't tell nobody else.
Don't tell anybody else.
Incredible.
Yeah. McMasters' article declared Ponzi hopelessly insolvent, reporting that while he claimed $7 million in liquid funds, he was actually $2 million in debt. With interest factored in, McMasters wrote Ponzi was actually $4.5 million in the red. The story touched off a massive run, which Ponzi paid off in one day.
God damn. Imagine gutting in line for the 3rd run.
I'm back.
But keep being
He's
like,
not even giving out coffee this time.
No, but imagine like you went there for the first one because of the lawsuit.
Yeah.
And then you went, there's a lot of people still invested. All right, I'm going to back out. I'm going to keep my money in. I'm going to keep my money in. I want to see the double. And then you go back and then he gives you a donut and he's charming.
Nice.
And now you see this one and you go and you're like, but you finally get paid out. Like, it must feel like the last helicopter. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, it's got to be crazy.
Yeah.
So
You
we
wanna
paid
take a
all
break?
these people off. Yeah, let's take a break. And when we come back,
It's August. We started this in January.
oh my God,
We're in August.
We're not even through the year yet. Usually we cover a decade
No,
in the world of Ponzi. All right, when we come back, we will learn
we'll find out how he's going to get through it.
How does he get through it?
Pearlmania, 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 Pearlmania.
500.net. And that does not mean that we're doing Patreon call outs today. This is a pre-recorded episode, but we wanted to just make sure that we could take our breaks when we needed to take them. So now you're going to tell me about the end.
Okay, so August 11th, we're still in August.
Yeah.
The Post published another front page story about his criminal activities in Montreal 13 years ago. Because they sent their private investigators out and they found out all the old shit.
At this point, if I was Ponzi, I would have been like, they feel, honestly, it's stalking. That's how I would have been like, they're just obsessed with me because of how successful I am. That's how Trump does it.
Yeah, exactly.
He'd be like, oh, the failing Boston Post.
Including forgery conviction, all that stuff.
Yeah. They're like, this man is a lifetime con artist.
That afternoon, the bank commissioner seized Hanover Trust due to the numerous irregularities. Because the whole time, the bank commissioners were checking out all of his banks because they were trying to figure out where he was, like what was going on with this money. And they realized that he was utilizing Hanover Trust improperly.
So because he was doing what that other guy did, where he was starting to take money from Hanover Trust
Exactly.
now, too. Okay.
And take out a lot of loans because he was taking out loans from the Hanover Trust Vault to pay the investors.
Oh.
Yeah. So after this, Ponzi surrenders to federal authorities. He was charged with mail fraud for sending letters to his clients telling them that the notes had matured. He was released on $25,000 bail and was immediately rearrested as soon as he stepped outside on state charges of larceny.
Good.
Which he posted an additional $10,000 bond. So he got out.
Okay.
Ponzi's investors, everybody else, all the investors, the people, the normal peoples, were wiped out. Everyone got maybe 30 cents on the dollar, right? Everyone lost. Total loss was about $20 million, which was approximately $304 million today.
Wow.
Yeah.
So somebody went and they put $10 into the scheme. By the time everything was done, they were handed $3.
Exactly.
But they were expecting 20.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah. So he bankrupted
Almost everybody.
everybody. Boston, he like almost bankrupt the entire city of Boston.
And including 75% of the cops.
Exactly.
Because Ponzi said ACAB.
Okay. So he goes into 2 federal indictments. Ponzi is charged with 86 counts of mail fraud.
Yeah.
And faced with life imprisonment.
Yeah, 86 counts is wild.
Because again, the postal service is in this.
Because they have guns.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with the postal
Never
cops.
fuck with the postal cops.
All right?
I can't say this.
We
enough.
cannot. If you're listen
Listen to me.
if you
They're
ever take
well organized.
if you ever take one piece of advice from this podcast,
Just don't.
do not put a stamp on a crime.
Don't.
Do not do this.
But that being said,
Yes.
if you are ever a victim of a crime where mail is involved,
Yeah.
call the postal inspector.
They will be there.
Call the postal inspector. I'm telling you.
You know who you shouldn't call? The Pennsylvania State Police.
Don't call them. They're not going to answer, and
It'll
it's
take
a
too
bad,
long,
It'll
and
be a
it's
bad time.
not great.
But the postal inspector, if you
Yes.
call them because you were a crime where somehow the mail was involved, baby, they're going to show up and they're going to get stuff done.
Yeah, and they have a gun.
Okay, stop talking about that.
Well, because it's crazy that the mailmen have guns.
They used to have horses. Anyway, 86 counts of mail fraud and faced with life imprisonment. At his wife's urging, Ponzi pleaded guilty on November 1st, 1920, to a single count, and he was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Fun fact I learned. Okay, so this is November. We're in November now. Same year.
This is a 10-month story.
November this year.
He wiped out $304 million in today's money in 10 months.
Yeah.
That's fucking, and then went to jail. That's fucking crazy. That's a speed run. Bernie Madoff, I think it took like 10 years or 15 years. Like Madoff did the Ponzi scheme. This is the same exact scheme.
Yeah.
But this is fucking wild.
Yeah. So he pleads guilty on November 1st, 1920, right? There is an election that happens this year, right? There's an election this year. And hundreds of people wrote Charles Ponzi name under the state treasurer position. He was a write-in.
Really?
He didn't ask to be.
No.
But people were like, the guy's good with money. And they wrote him in.
He didn't win, though, right?
He didn't win.
Okay, thank God.
But I'm saying,
Yeah.
people never fucking change.
No, people are dumb.
They saw a nice suit, and they thought he was rich.
Yep.
And they're like, he should be the president. He should be the state treasurer.
Yeah, that guy should be the president.
Fucking Christ.
Yep.
So Ponzi was released 3.5 years after for that indictment, right, in federal prison. As soon as he was released, he gets indicted again on 22 state charges of larceny. He's shocked by this because he thought he had a deal with the state that the charges would be dropped if he pled guilty to the federal crimes. So he actually sues the state, claiming that he would be facing double jeopardy if Massachusetts essentially retired, if they charge him with the same stuff, right?
Yeah, which is in the Constitution for everybody. You can't be charged for the same crime twice.
We've all seen the Ashley Judd movie, okay? We
Okay.
know about
Well,
Double
I
Jeopardy.
just want-
Do
listen,
you want to watch Double Jeopardy today?
I do want to watch Double Jeopardy.
love that
It's an
movie.
incredible movie. It also doesn't work because it's like
Shut up. Who cares
you
if
have
it
to do
works
the
or not?
murder
It's
in
a-
the same way.
It's a great movie.
Okay, it is a good movie. It's a fascinating idea.
I want to watch Double Jeopardy again.
Okay.
Okay, so this case made it to the Supreme Court.
Oh, really?
Yeah. On March 27th, the Supreme Court of 1922, the Supreme Court ruled that he had no standing. He had to accept the state charges. It also ruled that Ponzi was not facing double jeopardy because Massachusetts was charging him with larceny while the federal government charged him with mail fraud, even though the charges implicated are the same criminal operation.
Yeah. And the reason why that happened is because Clarence Thomas wasn't there to be bought off.
So
Bag of shit.
Ponzi was.
I see you, Clarence.
The Ponzi was tried on the first 10 larceny counts because he was broke. They said insolvent. Because he was broke,
Yeah.
he served as his own attorney.
Oh, that always goes well.
He spoke so persuasively and had such charm that he duped everyone, and the jury acquitted him on all charges.
No.
Yes.
That's the first I served as my own attorney story that worked out.
Yeah, he was just so
This
convincing.
dude is okay. All right, you know what? Charisma has to be his dump stat. That has to. He had to put everything into charisma. There's no other fucking way.
There's no way any of this works unless he is the most charismatic
He has to be the
person.
most charismatic.
Uniqueness, nerve, and talent.
Oh my god, he's got it all. Hi, who are you? I'm Carlo Ponzi. I'm here to serve cunt. Like, what are we talking about?
He was tried a second time for the 5 remaining charges. The jury deadlocked.
Oh.
Then they had to do it again. So Ponzi was found guilty at the third trial, and he was sentenced to an additional 7 to 9 years. There was an effort to have him deported at this point as an undesirable alien. In September of 1925, Ponzi is released on bail, and he has appealed his state conviction, and he fled to Jacksonville, Florida. He runs away.
Okay, all right, hold on. He fled, and Jacksonville, Florida.
He ran away.
They did not click
to
for
a
me.
luxurious place of Jacksonville, Florida.
Well, the thing is back then is like that is like the furthest place anyone could think of.
Yeah.
That is the middle of
While
nowhere.
he was there, he started a new company.
Oh, God,
called
no.
Charpon, for Charpon Land Syndica, seeking to capitalize on Florida's land boom. He offered investors small tracts of land, some underwater, and promised them 200% returns in 60 days.
He offered him the Ben Shapiro tract of land.
In
Who are you
reality-
going to sell it to? Fucking Aquaman.
In reality, the scam sold swampland, and Ponzi was again indicted by Duval County grand jury in February for violating the Florida Trust Securities Law. A jury found him guilty of securities charges, and he was sentenced to a year in Florida State Prison. Ponzi appealed his conviction and was freed after posting $1,500 bail.
Did they not notice that he was still been convicted and needed to go back to Massachusetts? That's the thing, is again, they didn't have computer systems to like cross-reference.
They didn't even
So
know who he
you could
was.
just do a crime in Massachusetts, go to Florida, do a crime, go to Arizona, do a crime. As long as you could just stay on the circuit,
Yeah.
you just had to move to a different quadrant. And we haven't even gotten into other countries yet. He could, at any point in time, he could have gone to Mexico. He could have gone back to Italy.
Yep.
And he could have hung out with Mussolini, who's on the rise at this point.
Guess what? I got news for you.
What?
So he travels to Tampa, where he shaves his head, grew a mustache, and tried to flee the country as a crewman on a ship bound for Italy. However, he revealed his identity to one of the shipmates, and word spread quick and fast to a deputy sheriff who was there. And they followed the ship to its last American port to call in New Orleans, where he was arrested immediately.
I love it. He couldn't help himself. He
Yeah.
had to be like,
Hey,
hey,
I'm
look
fine.
at me. You know my real name? Carlo, Pietro, Giovanni, Guglielmo, Tebaldo, Ponzi. But here, you call me Frank.
Call me Ponzi.
You call me Frank.
Call me Frank. Sorry, my name is Frank.
My name's Frank. Shh, it's a little secret.
After he's in New Orleans and he's in prison, he starts writing letters to Calvin Coolidge and Benito Mussolini, begging to be either deported or extradited.
That's your choices. Coolidge or Mussolini?
He's writing letters to both of them.
I'm obsessed. Oh, what a bag of shit.
However, both of them denied it, and I think this may be the only thing these two fuckers ever agreed on, is neither of them wanted Ponzi.
No, they both agreed on corporate tax levels.
Okay.
Because Mussolini famously said that I think the spirit of fascism is corporatism, and Calvin Coolidge did not believe in government intervention, which made the fallout and everything else worse. Like Hoover caused a lot of the Great Depression, but a lot of Coolidge's policies were carried through. Mm-hmm. That was truly republicanism. It's a very funny joke that, yes, this is one of the few things that they definitely both agreed on, but it's definitely not the only thing these fuckers agreed on. I just want to throw that out there.
So he gets sent back to Massachusetts to serve out his prison term.
Also, really quick,
Yeah.
Calvin Coolidge, also a Quaker. Huh. If you want to tie back into the last episode.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ponzi served 7 more years in prison in Massachusetts. Ponzi is released in 1934. And when he was released, an immediate order came to have him deported back to Italy. And on October 7th, he was deported.
What a terrible time to go back to Italy. 1934. You had, oh my God. Oh, bro, you fucked up. Oh, you fucked up, bro.
Yeah.
1934. They sent him back just in time for the war.
Yeah.
He missed the first one.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
So Rose stayed in the U.S. She divorced him.
His
she
wife?
says, "I'm staying here."
Yeah, I
I'm
forgot
staying in
about her.
Boston.
Yeah.
There's a lot of backstory with Rose, but for time, I just cut
Yeah.
it. In Italy, Ponzi jumped from scheme to scheme, but could not make any
Under
success.
a fascist government?
Just kept trying. He eventually got a job in Brazil
What?
as an agent of the Italian state airline, because they had an airline that went from Brazil to Italy. During World War II, however, the airline's operation in the country was shut down after British intelligence services intervened.
Yeah.
And Brazil sided with the Allies, right? Ponzi spent the last years of his life in abject poverty. He lived in Rio de Janeiro, and he lived basically in a charity hospital. He was really sick. He went blind. He had multiple strokes. He was really ill. And he died, I believe, homeless in a charity hospital in Rio de Janeiro on January 18th of 1949.
Got it.
And that's Ponzi. That's who we name it after. That's
who we named that scheme after.
the Ponzi scheme, because it was so fast.
Yeah.
It was so crazy. It
Yeah.
crippled so many people financially.
Yep.
That it became a term, and the more I read about it, people would say everything became, don't get Ponzi. Banks started making advertisements use Citizens Bank, don't get Ponzi'd.
Yeah. Well, there's a secondary part in there of xenophobia.
Yeah.
Because Ponzi's an immigrant.
Yeah.
And because he's an Italian immigrant especially. And there was a lot of animosity towards Italian immigrants at that time. And so he's othered.
Yep.
He's an immigrant that people trusted wildly. And then he stabbed all of them in the back.
Yep.
And so you add that in on top of that, it's a financial crime that is it's both hard to understand, but once you get it, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
It actually, this all does really, really, really remind me of crypto and NFTs.
Yep.
Because that's the only way they work too. You have to have a bag holder. Someone has to buy in after you for this to make sense. Yeah. I know some people will say it's very similar to stocks in that way, but stocks have other ways that they can pay you out. You can be paid out by a dividend. You can be paid out by a splits. There's other different ways that you can do stocks other than purchase and sell.
Yeah.
purchase and sell, purchase and sell. You're always counting on someone else to step in. There's been a lot of things that have been similar. So I think a lot about the comic book boom of the 90s. So I know you weren't like in the the early 90s. Somebody noticed that comic books actually had a better return than the stock market.
Oh,
Depending on certain ones, right? So like Action Comics #1, or the first issue with Batman in it, the first Spider-Man. All of these different comic books were starting to sell at auction for huge amounts of money. So if you had them, they were worth a lot more. So you paid 15 cents for a comic book and then you sold it for nearly $1 million. That's a crazy percentage on return, right?
yeah.
So in the 90s, a big thing became you got to collect comic books. You really need to get #1 issues because those are the ones that are going to have the best return. So what comic book companies started doing is they started printing more and more #1s. They started creating more and more series or more imprints. So like Uncanny X-Men is the longest running version of that book of the X-Men. So they released a new book that was just called X-Men. It's the same story,
Yeah.
but it just has a different name. So X-Men #1, they released. X-Men #1 also had 6 variant covers. So you got to collect all the covers, all these different, and they're going to be worth something. This is all going to be worth something. This is all made. So I have like 4 copies of X-Men #1 upstairs in our attic. I think I paid $2 or $3 for each of them.
Yeah.
They are worth about $7 today. Like they didn't really appreciate it because the other thing too is the market got flooded, and then all of us who were sold into this idea, we didn't have parents then who threw out our comic books. Because the reason why Spider-Man #1 is worth something, the reason why Action Comics #1 is worth something is because there are people in our lives or the comic books themselves didn't have intrinsic value and we didn't believe they would. So we used them. We ripped up the pages. We wrote in them. We did all these different things to them from 1930 up until 1990.
Yeah.
So you had 60 years of use. We didn't use the bag comic books, all these different things. All of that comes together. And so then you end up with the market falling out because it gets flooded by people who are acting like the comic book from 1930 is going to be treated the same as the comic book from 1990. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that same exact mentality is what happened to NFTs. So NFTs is the idea of there's only going to be a certain amount of these things, just like the Trump digital trading card. There's only going to be a certain amount of these things. However, that is assuming that you are the only person who is doing a stamp scam.
Yeah,
because
there aren't enough stamps.
There aren't enough stamps. However, if somebody else set up a similar Ponzi scheme, specifically doing the stamp thing in New York, then Ponzi wouldn't be able to pull as much money.
Yeah.
If there's if Ponzi's doing this in Boston and with a security exchange company, and somebody down the street opens the Doge exchange company, you can't wash all of it through his Bitcoin. You can't watch all of it through his NFT. So when you had with NFTs and you were looking at it with all of these different people with like the apes,
Yeah.
right? The board eight yacht club and all this bullshit. But then there's 1,000 other NFTs.
Yeah.
Suddenly you start to realize you can't sell these back because why would I buy the $100,000 ape picture when I can go buy the $15 water bottle picture?
Yeah.
And then that'll be worth 100,000. This same idea cratered the entire market, which is if you guys want to know more about NFTs, their Folding Ideas did a wonderful YouTube called Line Goes Up, which actually destroyed the entire system. To this day, I believe that one YouTube video saved the American financial institutions from falling too deeply into both NFTs and too deeply into cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Because it laid it bare and talks about 2008 until the modern day on how we got there. That's just what I want to wrap in to bring everything today with Ponzi.
Thanks.
Sorry it wasn't as fun.
I mean, I like stamps. It's almost Christmas stamp time. And I fucking love a Christmas stamp.
You do love a Christmas
I love
stamp.
a theme of stamp. If I'm mailing a letter, you are getting a nice stamp. People know this about me.
They do, and it to the point where you get mad at me because I just go to the machine and I just hit print.
I just had to send out thank you letters,
and
thank you cards, and some of them had the American flag printout stamps
because
from the
they're
machine.
forever stamps.
Ugh.
You got so mad at me.
Gross.
I didn't want to wait in the line, but also you didn't tell me like a specific stamp to get.
I'm just gonna pick the nice one. They always have like a nice one.
Well, sometimes they do, and then sometimes they have like Elvis.
Oh, or they have what's her name?
What's her name?
Reagan's wife.
Oh, Nancy Reagan.
There's a Nancy Reagan stamp that's like haunting the post office.
Oh, because they can't get rid of it?
Nobody's buying it. She's been there forever. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm never mailing anything with Nancy Reagan on it.
Amazing.
Unless it's an invitation that says blowjobs for everybody.
Well, I think we just found this week's secret phrase. The secret phrase of this week was blowjobs for everybody. Thank you all for making it to the end of the episode.
People are going to be confused if you write that.
Make it to the end of our Ponzi scheme episode, please get down in the comments and type blowjobs for everybody. With that, Mrs. P.
I regret everything.
Do you have anything you would like to say to all of our listeners?
Number 1, fuck the Reagans.
Yep.
Number 2, have a great week, y'all.
And with that, guys, thank you so much to everybody who joins us on our Patreon, Pearlmania500.net. Also, patreon.com/Pearlmania500. All the ways you can reach us. Find my stand-up shows down there in the show notes. Look around for them. And you know what? If you're talking about postal codes, we do have a P.O. box. So we'd like to remind to everybody every now and then, if you want to send us something, it's there.
It's there. We check
It's there. We check
I look at it.
We look at
I
it
get
sometimes.
books sometimes, and I love them.
We do. We enjoy everything we get from there. Thank you guys so much for everything, and we will see you next week.
Too many frauds and too many scammers that we wish weren't real. Too many cons and too many spammers, and we're starting to feel like we've got too many tabs open. It's too many tabs. Remember to smile.